Morning, everyone. I see we've got a few people coming into our session now. I'm Helen Noble. I'm Workplace Innovation Leader, Team Leader from Scottish Enterprise. I'm going to be leading the session with you this morning. Maybe just give it another couple of seconds for more people to join us. Michelle and I were just looking there. It looks like there's maybe a slight issue with the title for this session. So you maybe thought the session was around skills for growth. That session was changed and we're going to be discussing value-based leadership today. So it's going to be a great session. You're going to learn lots about leadership, values-based organisations and workplace innovation. So hopefully that is something that's going to be of interest to you all and resonates with you and your organisations. So apologies if that's not the session you thought you were attending today, but there was a change in the schedule earlier on this week. So I see a few more people joining us now, which is great. I'll just give it another few seconds and then we'll start. So while other people come in, I'll just maybe run through some housekeeping. So just ask you to keep your microphone on mute as we go through the presentation today. And also if you can keep your cameras off, and that's just for bandwidth so we don't get any issues and Michelle and I don't suddenly disappear halfway through the presentation. Okay, we're at 16, almost 17 minutes past here, so we're just going to get started because I'm conscious of time and there may be other sessions that you're heading off to later today. So welcome everyone, thank you for coming along to our session today. As I said, this is going to be values-based leadership and how that can help you drive business growth. I'm Helen Noble, Workplace Innovation Team Leader with Scottish Enterprise, and I'm joined by my colleague Michelle Patterson. Michelle is one of the Workplace Innovation Specialists in my team and she'll be supporting me with the presentation this morning. So I'll run through a presentation. We've got about 30 minutes to run through the presentation and then we'll have some Q&A at the end. So about 50 minutes Q&A, so lots of time for questions at the end. As we're going through the presentation, if you want to put your questions into the chat, we can have a look at them there and then we can respond to them at the end. And I'm sure there'll be time where you can come off mic and maybe ask your question personally as well, because we don't look like it's not too big a group, so I'm sure we can manage that. So as we're going through, just pop your questions in the chat and then we'll respond to them later on. If we can ask you just to mute your mics, anyone who's just joined us, just so that we don't get any background noise as we're running through this morning. Okay, so I will just start. Also, just a reminder that this is being recorded. So if you've been on previous sessions, you will be aware of that. But just so you know that all sessions are being recorded and you can access them again at a later date as well. So just a little agenda of what we're going to run through today. So I'll give you a bit more of an introduction to myself and Michelle and what we do within workplace innovation within Scottish Enterprise and how this relates to our topic today of values-based leadership. We'll then look at a model of values-based leadership, which we actually use within our own Scottish Enterprise leadership programmes, and talk about the 4 levels of leadership. We'll then talk about the evidence of that. So this all sounds great, but how does it drive business growth? What are the benefits going to be to you and your organisation? So we'll spend a bit of time looking at the evidence and give you some good stats which can help make the business case for change within your organisations. I'll then run through some support that Scottish Enterprise can offer through our workplace innovation team in this area. And then Michelle's going to bring this all to life for you with a few case studies at the end of companies that she's worked with and actual projects that we've delivered to them through the Workplace Innovation Service. So hopefully that sounds of interest and that meets your expectations for today. In terms of who we are and workplace innovation, so some of you may be familiar with the terminology of workplace innovation. For some of you, it may be new and you're wondering exactly what that is. So workplace innovation is about making the most of your people processes within your organisation. So bringing everything together to create a culture where everyone is fully engaged, they can reach their full potential, and you get the benefit from your full resources across the organisation. Creating a really fair and innovative workplace where you can create change, it can be transformative, and you make real progress in your business performance, increasing efficiency, productivity, etc. It's not one thing, so when people ask us what workplace innovation is, that we can't just give a very simple one-line answer because it's a whole mix of practices. It's bringing all these practices and processes together to maximise the outputs within your organisation. It's a very holistic approach, so we look at upskilling, redeploying people, culture, leadership, management, so it covers all of those areas. And organisations that implement change across this whole range of workplace practices have much higher results and improved performance as a result. in terms of our team and what do we do. So the Workplace Innovation Service in Scottish Enterprise has been established for a number of years. We offer our knowledge, skills and expertise to businesses across Scottish Enterprise area. We engage with small high growth ventures, scaling companies up to SMEs and large companies. So we're looking to work with businesses who are ambitious, they're keen to grow, maybe really keen to increase innovation within their organisation, internationalise and maybe look for investment to grow at scale. So we use the skills and knowledge expertise of the team to help companies across workplace innovation. How do they put in place practices and processes that really makes the most of their people potential, create a really innovative organisation that's a fair place to work, people are fairly rewarded and they get to use their knowledge and skills to influence the performance and outcomes within the organisation. We provide guidance around fair work. So some of you may be familiar with the Fair Work Framework and we'll talk about that this morning as well. And we also look at values-based leadership, so our topic today. So one of the key issues within business is making sure you have really effective leadership team. It's also one of the key drivers for successful growth within organisations. So it's an area we spend a lot of time talking to businesses about. We also work closely with partners, so Business Gateway, local authorities, Skills Development Scotland, DYW. So we bring in lots of different partners to support businesses as well. On the right hand side there you can see an overview of our service. So we cover concepts, benefits, workplace innovation. We deliver diagnostics to companies, provide them with action plans to create change within the organisation. So it's about bringing this to life for them. How do they make a positive change and see the benefits within their business for both the business performers and their employees. And we support the implementation, as I said, through either some support direct from Scottish Enterprise or sometimes that's in partnership collaboration as well. So that is us and this is what we do. So as you can see, values-based leadership sits firmly within that framework of workplace innovation. But the term, what do we mean by values-based leadership and why do we think it's important? So values-based leadership is about creating a different leadership culture within businesses. It's helping them bring together the performance of their employees to improve business performance, but also create really positive impacts in their wider environment, so their community, the society within which they operate. So it's valuing more than just profit. So profit is extremely important. All businesses need to be profitable to survive, but it's about how they deliver that profitability. What are the values that guide the business? How do they align behind that in terms of their business strategy, their workplace practices, and how they engage with customers, suppliers, and that wider community. And it's creating leaders at every level. So a key aspect of workplace innovation and values-based leadership is it's not just at the leadership team, it's throughout the organisation. It's distributed leaderships where everybody has a voice within the organisation, they can contribute to decisions, and they themselves are leaders. So distributed leadership is a key feature of a values-based leadership structure within organisations. And if companies operate in this way, they get the business benefits, which we'll touch on, such as enhanced engagement, collaboration, increased rates of innovation, increased retention, improved employee well-being, all of which fosters growth and profitability for the business. So the model that we're going to look at this morning, I mentioned Scottish Enterprise that focuses on value-based leadership. We have our own programmes, and the programme we deliver to businesses focuses on the 4 levels of leadership. So leadership, as I said, distributed leadership throughout all levels of the organisation. It needs to cover different elements. So yourself as a leader. So who are you as a leader? What are your behaviours? It also looks at the team. So how does values-based leadership influence team performance, team dynamics, and team outcomes? What are the organisational processes and practices that you have in place that really create values-based leadership and help that be a successful process within your organisation, that you get the maximum from that? And what is the impact on the wider community? So does your values-based leadership impact on that wider community? And this approach, looking at all these levels, makes it much more sustainable and it has greater impact. So the 4 levels of leadership, I'll spend a bit of time on this slide just talking you through these different levels and what they mean. So this model, as I said, is from the Scottish Enterprise Programme. Looking at yourself, so who are you as a leader? And this is everyone within the organisation. So what are your leadership behaviours? What's your own value system? And how do your behaviours influence others around you? So some people may be very aware of what their leadership style is, what their preferences are. Others maybe haven't looked at this previously. So it's always good to start with a bit of self-reflection, a bit of development, understanding your leadership style and structure a bit more, but also what are the values associated with your leadership behaviours. It also sets the tone of the organisation, as I said. How you interact with others at a leadership level will dictate the culture within your organisation. So it's really important to think about who are you as a leader and what type of organisation do you want to create. Those leadership values are also reflected in your strategy and vision. So the leader of an organisation at senior level creates the vision of the organisation. They set the strategy for everyone to follow. And if your values are really embedded in that, then people are clear in what you stand for, what the organisation stands for, and how they contribute to that. So it brings together a really cohesive leadership team at the senior level of the organisation, and at that distributed leadership throughout the organisation, everyone is sharing those same behaviours. Leadership is one of the key influences of experience within an organisation. So how people experience work, leadership and management behaviours are one of the key influences. So starting at that leadership level to think about the leadership behaviours you want to see in your senior team is really important to set that tone and culture throughout the organisation. Looking at the team, so if you have distributed leadership and everyone shares the same common values, so they're aligned to those, it makes team performance much better. So it increases the level of performance from the team greater than it would be individually. People are aligned behind the goals, they know what they're there to achieve, they know how to achieve that, they're very clear in the direction, but also know what their role is in making decisions within the team. So what is the autonomy with the team? What are they empowered to do? How do they resolve issues within the team? You also get the creation of team cohesion, so the team working really closely together, looking out for each other, supporting each other, and that impacts on your well-being as well throughout the organisation. So it's really important about achieving your goals, and you get higher performance from teams as a result of this. So they take ownership and they know that they can work together. It's also bringing teams together across the organisation, so creating multifunctional teams so that you can share learning across the organisation. It creates that accountability as well, that everybody's working together as a team towards the same common shared goals. To support that structure within teams, you look at your organisational processes. So this is where we start to see some of the factors of fair work. So for some of you who may be familiar with fair work, the Fair Work Framework was published in 2016 by Scottish Government and the Fair Work Convention. And this looks at your processes and practices within the organisation. So are they fair? Does it treat everybody fairly? Do they have the same opportunities? Are they treated with respect? Do they get paid the real living wage? So there's 5 different dimensions of fair work, which are a really good framework to look at for your organisational values-based leadership. This makes sure that you've got your values in all your processes. So from attraction in terms of your employer brand. So how do you attract? Michelle's just putting some signposting in there. So how do you attract individuals to your organisation? And we found that values-based leadership is something that really attracts your next generation of leaders. So looking at millennials, Gen Z, Gen Y, they're looking for a different style of leadership within organisations. They're looking at the values. They want to be autonomous. They're looking for lateral career progression. They want to feel empowered. So adopting this values-based approach and making sure it's embedded in your organisational structures will help you with your succession planning and help you attract the talent you need to grow your organisation. The Fair Work Framework, Michelle's posting in the chat there a link to that. So if you're not familiar with the framework, you can pop onto that and you can have a look at how to use the tool, what it could mean for you as a business. It's a free tool that you can go through, a set of questions and get a report at the end of that. And that will then lead you to some resources that you could access to support your organisation. Give you ideas about how you can maybe change your practices, can make them more values focused, how you could be a bit more innovative within your organisation, and maybe start to benchmark yourself against the framework with a plan in place to move forward within that. So Michelle's put that in the chat there. In terms of community, so the difference between values-based leadership and traditional leadership is that three-pronged approach, if you like, that vision that you're looking at how to make the best out of your people resources so that they have the great experience at work, they're valued, they're well rewarded, you have improved business performance, but also that you have a really positive impact on that wider community within which you serve and you operate. So thinking about how your actions impact on that community, sharing the value and benefits of the organisation with the community, and that can be in lots of different ways. So for some organisations, that's creating partnerships with social enterprises and community groups. For others, it's maybe creating opportunities within the organisation to showcase career paths to young people, create opportunities for people to come in and learn about different skills that they could develop to create different career opportunities, linking into um, maybe career ready programs, for example, which is a great way to give young people access to the workplace to build their understanding of what it means to go into a workplace. And being a values based employer gives them a really positive experience to think about in terms of their career development and their growth. So these four levels, they're all interlinked. You know, you can't just focus on one level and expect to have a values-based organisation and see the benefits from that. You really need to look at all the levels and how do you really integrate your approach to become a values-based leader and a values-based organisation. And it's about creating that wider culture where everybody is aligned to your values. They're very clear. They're there to support the organisation. And if you've got everyone aligned behind that, then it makes delivery in terms of your organisational objectives much higher, but also much faster as well. You're able to change a lot quicker as well. In terms of thinking about this within your own organisation, think about how you would identify and agree the values for your business. So do you have values already within the business? Do they actually reflect who you are as an organisation? You'll have a business strategy, I'm sure, but how do your values align to that? Do your values describe how you will deliver that business strategy, what your employees can expect, what your suppliers can expect, what your customers can expect? Think about as well how the values at different stages of the employee life cycle within your business. So that's at your organisational level. So what are your values when you are attracting employees? And making sure those values are embedded through every stage, even through to exit. So if you're attracting new talent into your organisation, at some point those young people may leave, but you want them to leave having had a really positive experience and been advocates for your organisation. So even at exit stage, your values and how you treat people when they choose to leave the organisation is really important in terms of your brand, your reputation, and how you will attract new talent in. So if people are advocating your organisation for having great values, being a great place to work, really letting people use their skills and knowledge, letting them be part of solutions and problem solving, giving them opportunities to advance their career, then they're going to be great advocates for bringing new people into your organisation and extending that network further for you. Also thinking about how your values stay relevant. So it's important to keep revisiting your values. So as the world about us changes, are those values still relevant? Do they still mean the same to people as they did when you first developed them? So thinking about our own organisation, the values we have now are different from the values we had 10 years ago. So we're still focused on economic growth and supporting businesses, but our values now are to be much braver in terms of how we do that, to use the knowledge and skills of our teams much more to be the difference of businesses. So we're really embedding those values in how we deliver our business strategy and our support to businesses. So revisiting those to make sure that they really reflect where you are, and also make sure that they stay up to date, and also that you're starting to review how things change within the business so that nothing's static. So that all sounds great, but will that have an impact on the business? So the good news is yes, and there's lots of evidence to support that. So there's a body of evidence over a long period of time that shows that strong positive relationships between leadership and management will result in improved performance in terms of productivity, profitability, and even business survival rates. So there's a lot of evidence here that you can look at to create the business case for change within your organisation and move to a more values-based focus. Values also drive higher performance. So as a value-based leader, we've found that the performance of those organisations that has values-based leaders can be up to 50% higher. So a significant growth potential there if you choose to align behind this values-based approach. Part of the reason you get that higher performance is you're unlocking the full potential of your organisation and your people resources. You're getting people to give their discretionary effort through increased participation, increased rates of innovation, increased problem solving. So that improves your overall performance. But also selecting your talent that you bring into your organisation to align with your values means that you're bringing people who will give you that discretionary effort, the increased commitment. You're also reducing the likelihood that you're going to have conflict within your organisation because people are aligned behind those common values and common goals. And also at the team level, you've got that shared ownership of the team goals to deliver. High values organisation also have increased trust, so people feel that they've got their back, that they can speak up. So employee voice within the Fair Work framework, people can contribute to the organisation, that will be viewed positively. They can make suggestions, give their ideas, also make decisions and have the autonomy to implement those decisions. So that level of trust means that people will take a lot more ownership and their values align with that, so they accept change quicker as well. Increased trust is one of the cores, so that open dialogue, creativity, etc. But relationships are also really key. So relationships matter to individuals, and it's one of the key things that people may leave an organisation could be the relationship between themselves and their leader or their manager. So relationships make people have a positive experience within work. They feel that they can perform better and they're more motivated, they have greater commitment, and that leads to improved health and well-being. So something that is really important at the moment in the current climate is making sure that we support employees, that they do feel that they've got well-being support with the cost of living crisis, the cost of doing business. There's lots of pressures on people. So having those relationships, they can turn to colleagues and turn to you as their leader for support means that they're more likely to stay in work and reduce your absence levels. Those relationships also attract better partners for you. So, in terms of suppliers, customers, people who can work with based on shared values, where you customers who will remain loyal to you because they align to your values. So, it has that external focus as well, and that's why it's important to embed your values throughout your organisation, internally and externally. Gives you a really good framework for decision making as well. So if you have a values based leadership approach, then it helps you make sometimes difficult decisions, but you make the right decision. So it becomes your moral compass. So you'll make decisions based on what your values are, and there will be better informed decisions that will also get to the decisions quicker because everything aligns back to that. So, for example, if you're very focused on achieving net zero, you'll be sourcing materials that are sustainable and looking for suppliers and your supply chain to align with that. So, it will help you make those decisions that can make your business move quicker as well. Also improves your risk management because you've got that values-based focus. You understand the appetite for risk, you understand when to take risk and how to make those decisions effectively. Now, we can also share some stats with you. So some people like some stats that brings us to life a bit more. So this is from a range of research that we've done. So we look at research regularly to ensure that we're aware of trends, best practice. We can update our service offering to businesses. So we look at European research, we look at international research and some Scottish research as well. So there's some good things out there if you're interested in looking into this area more. So driving business growth, this values-based approach can help you increase your rates of innovation by up to 19% by having a more diverse management team. So that diversity of views, experience, voices within your organisation generates more innovation, particularly at a leadership and management level. If you have a happy workforce, and there is an index for this, if you'd like to have a look at it, they're more productive. So that's part of those relationships, that team cohesion. People are aligned behind what you're there to achieve. They feel supported. They're having a good experience at work. Therefore, they'll be more productive. Employee involvement is also really key in terms of unlocking productivity within organisations. And employees, over 19% of employees report that their organisation has problem solving within that. So by giving more opportunities to solve problems, be part of solutions, you're going to unlock increased productivity within your organisation. So these are just some of the ways in which a values-based focus to leadership and your organisation can unlock potential, have a really positive impact on your performance. If you're interested in looking at this in a bit more, maybe taking some actions within your organisation, Michelle has sent a link to the Fair Work framework, which you could have a look at. But also within Scottish Enterprise, we've got some support which we can offer as well. So we have our own leadership programmes, and the 4 levels of leadership is part of our leadership programmes. There are 2 different levels of programmes, and Michelle's going to pop a link in the chat which will take you to more information on these. They're open to anyone to book onto, so they're open programmes, and we run them frequently throughout the year, and they're either hybrid, so a mix of face-to-face and online, or fully online, so it just depends what we're running at any one time. Growth leadership is aimed at strategic leaders within their organisations, so MDs, CEOs, key decision makers who are maybe looking to update their leadership skills, look at it through a values-based lens and learn what that means for them, who they are as a values-based leader, and also what that means in terms of how they lead their teams, lead the organisation, and create that whole culture of values-based leadership and workplace innovation within their organisation. The Essential Leadership Programme is for people who may be on the first stage of that leadership journey and are looking to start to develop strategic thinking a bit more within their organisation. The same themes are covered across both programmes, but to different depths, obviously. And the key difference is the Growth Leadership Programme has one-to-one coaching. These programmes are heavily subsidised by SE, as you can see by the costing there. So the link's in the chat if you want to find out a bit more about those. We also have our own diagnostic, which we offer to companies that we engage with. So the Fair Work tool is one diagnostic to look at to create a values-based leadership structure within your organisation. We also have our own workplace innovation diagnostic review. So this is delivered by members of our team, like Michelle, who go into organisations. They speak to senior leaders within the organisation, find out what the business strategy is, what the growth aspirations are. Then they'll look at that organisational focus. So what processes and practices do they have within the organisation to help them create that values-based culture? We produce an action plan and report for companies that helps them move forward in that journey. You can see the dimensions of the diagnostic there. We can tailor that slightly for our businesses if they've got an area that really need to focus on. So recruitment is a big area for companies at the moment. So getting access to talent, bringing people into the organisation, how do they unlock those hidden pools of talent that are out there? How do they replace people they've lost due to COVID, etc. So we can focus on that a bit more within these reviews if that's something that the organisation needs. The report that the organisation gets will also signpost them to what support is available to implement change within the organisation. That may be through Scottish Enterprise, it could be through a partner. So we'll try and help companies as much as possible to move forward in that journey. Now going to hand over to Michelle. Michelle's going to bring some of this to life with examples of real case studies that she's done with companies. So these are projects that Michelle's delivered, and she's going to talk you through what they are and what some of the outcomes of those projects are.
Thanks, Helen. Yeah, just a couple of examples of leadership support that we've provided to a couple of companies. Just to say that both of these companies are from different sectors, and both of these companies, the CEO attended our SE leadership program and came away with a sense of urgency to do things differently. They came back to the workplace innovation team for a chat and just really to discuss what was the art of the possible. It often starts, as Helen says, with a conversation with the either leadership team or the CEO around things of currently, what are you seeing, what are you doing, what would you like to do differently, what's not quite working. We will typically have a conversation around culture. What do they see their culture is? Do they have current values that their behaviours are aligned to? And typically the questions are around data analytics. What do you know about your employee performance? How do you promote training? Do you ensure there's fairness and equity? We also cover areas around the employee value proposition. How do you actively support career development for employees? And do you have a strong employer identity and culture? And does that make you attractive as an employer? And this all plays into the organisation and community space as being a good local employer and is values based in what they do. We also ask questions around that talent management, organisational structure, job design, performance, teasing out things like how do you process and identify high performers within your organisation? And do you have a structure to facilitate communication and collaboration. And specifically around the leaders and managers, how do your leaders and managers understand their role in creating a working environment which supports employee well-being? Do your leaders and managers contribute to a culture of high trust, which is what Helen's mentioned earlier, enabling initiative, problem solving, and creativity at team level? So as you can imagine, just sitting around a table and having a chat with a team, a leadership team, or a CEO, and unpicking this tends to identify a couple of areas and gaps and development areas that they would like to work on. Typically, we will support the leadership team to establish maybe the messaging that they would like, and it can be a little bit tactical and transactional, but the purpose of it is to make them a business of transformational change and really enable them to embed a program of transformational change for business growth. We typically will signpost them to expert support from a consultant or a supplier in this space who can help them with their project once we've established what that project might look like. So these are two examples for you. This first one that you see on the slide is a company that came to the table with wanting to have an understanding of their shared values and common purpose as a leadership team. And they started this project with a self-assessment diagnostic tool and looking at their emotional intelligence and behavioural traits. They also did a team diagnostic to understand each other and a little bit of a 360 around how do they work together, not just as a team, but across the organisation. They quickly realised they needed to communicate better across the team, across the organisation, and also share their values with the external marketplace. They identified gaps and role overlaps within the leadership team, which was actually causing conflict. So they needed to ensure that they had a different way of working moving forward. They also wanted to develop a communicable organisational structure that was fit for purpose for them for future growth and provide clear roles and responsibilities to the organisation, not just to themselves. They also felt they needed a simple succession planning framework to ensure they had employee engagement and a talent pipeline for their leadership succession. And they also wanted to put in place a talent management plan for what they called building the bench strength of their leadership team. We often get leadership teams and companies coming to us saying, you know, we need some sort of succession planning, but they don't know what that will look and feel like. So this is the kind of teasing out that we can do with a company to look at their project in a more transformational way. So this particular project resulted in an organisational structure to support growth, the creation of a job family framework to support career discussions, provision of a succession planning tool to support managers with performance, organisation and pay decisions, and creation of a development plan for current leaders and potential leaders. So the next slide that you will see is a small company, an employee-owned company, and they did have a shared set of values, but they needed to refresh these values having transitioned to employee ownership. They also had to identify themselves as an organisation where the employees had a stake in the business, which was very different from before. And it was clear to the company that they needed to identify a clear what they called a game plan for growth, but equally what the role of the leadership team would play in that growth and how they wanted to role model themselves as an organisation through their values and behaviours. They quickly identified that decision making at the right levels and communicating effectively were key. And the activity that they put in place to lead transformational change was transformational for them. They developed a shared mindset and looked at skills required for company leadership. They built the new team into an increasingly cohesive unit, founded on shared values, trust and transparency. And they based all of this on their business growth strategy, which is what Helen mentioned earlier. And they assessed the structures and processes required to deliver and plan any changes. They also looked at their resources, their people, their time and their cost, those risks, those accountabilities, which was quite key for them. Who was going to do what? When were they going to do it? Why were they going to do it? And are they going to communicate how they're going to do it? And they established a platform for personal leadership development at senior level. As Helen mentioned, what we've seen is research tells us that values-based leadership is most effective when these values are truly lived. And what we see with our projects as the workplace innovation team is how those values come to life in their everyday attitude, approach, behaviours and decision making. I think what we also see is the inherent commitment to their values in a real, observable way. But that's not us as a workplace innovation team observing externally. It's how is the organisation observed internally through their employee surveys, and also through the community and how they see that organisation within their local landscape, internationally, globally. So as Helen mentioned, it's about that moral compass and putting the people before the processes, helping with problem solving, guiding decision making, and about doing the right thing at the right time. But it might not be the easiest thing to do. I think what I would say to you all is if there's anyone who would like to have a chat about leadership support, then please do reach out. We would be happy to introduce you to companies that have undertaken these kind of projects and the impact that they have had. We do have an inquiry a support mechanism through Scottish Enterprise, so I'll pop the inquiry link in the chat. Thanks, Helen.
Great, thank you, Michelle. Okay, that is us. So we have about 9 minutes left for a quick Q&A. So apologies, we ran over slightly there, but hopefully that was of interest and value to you, pardon the pun, about how we approach values-based leadership with organisations and the benefits that can bring to them. There's nothing in the chat in terms of questions, but Michelle has posted some great links there if you want to look at those. So through to our own leadership programme, the Fair Work Framework, and some of the research around values-based leadership that you might be interested in. Does anyone have any questions? Anyone want to raise their hand and ask a question? Come off mute and ask. No, don't be shy.
I think we've bombarded them with a lot of information, Helen.
Can I just ask, is anyone familiar with the Fair Work Framework? We did a session on Fair Work yesterday, and I was interested in the split of the audience, those who were familiar, those who weren't. So anyone familiar with the Fair Work Framework and has used that within their organisation?
Helen, it's Marlon. No, I'm not very aware of it, which is why I was interested in coming on this. I didn't manage to make it all because I had someone come to my door to ask me about something. So,
oh, I think we're all used to that, Marlon.
Yeah. Are your slides available?
Yes, we're happy to make the slides available, absolutely.
Lovely. I'll be able to then maybe catch up on the bits that I missed. Thank you, Helen.
Yep, certainly. What we can do as well is maybe put some of the links with the slides as well so that you can link through to them and make it a bit easier. Okay. Anyone else? Any questions? Don't want to keep you here because I know that you might have other sessions to get to, but final ask for any questions before we go?
Yes, Susie, it is. Happy to have a chat, Susie, if you want to reach out.
So Susie's just asking the chat there about, is it worth doing for micro businesses? Absolutely. And we do support small businesses as well. So not just, SMEs and large businesses. We work with small businesses, high growth businesses, and we would actually say some of the smaller businesses, that's when we really want to engage and help you set up a values-based approach really early in your organisational growth, because it's much easier to do it then rather than when you're 50 or 100 people. So it's really good for us to speak to companies at an early stage of their growth, and we're happy to do that. Okay, thank you, Beth.
Yes, thank you, Beth.
Okay, Michelle will add a link into the chat to our inquiry. So if you're interested in speaking to a member of the team, so Michelle or one of our colleagues, then please get in touch. We have a team of 10 specialists covering the whole of Scottish Enterprise area, and we have a huge range of skills within the team. So some are HR generalists, L&D specialists, skills background, recruitment specialists. So we have covered it all. So anything to do with workplace innovation, we'll have expertise within our team. So if you're interested in learning more or maybe creating a change within your organisation, please do get in touch. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks all.